Hi, I'm actor Ian Champion, and welcome to History of Horror Cinema, my podcast series devoted to the good, bad, and the ugly of horror movie history. Please don't forget to like what you hear and hit subscribe. I have such sights to show you. Haunted Spooks, 1920. With gags turbo-boosted by adrenaline, it seems apt that Harold Lloyd was the first of the major movie comedy stars to venture across the haunted threshold of pulse-quickening horror titillation. This he did in 1920 with Haunted Spooks. By now, he had been working for director-producer Hal Roach's studio for 5 years. The direction was credited to Roach and Alfred J. Goulding, who in a prolific career went on to direct Laurel and Hardy's excellent A Chump at Oxford in 1940. Photography was by Walter London, and a rousing music score was added by Robert Israel for the 2004 release. The superbly witty and mischievous intertitle cards were written by the renowned wit H.M. Walker, who as well as writing the scripts for many classic silent comedies also supervised their editing. Even his credits have a racy and amusingly cynical edge. Lloyd, labeled the boy, is here summed up with, "He wants to get married, has no other faults," while Mildred Davis, his love interest, is sweet 16 and never, well, once or twice. The premise of Haunted Spooks is that the lovely and wholesome Miss Davis stands to inherit her grandfather's mansion down in the Deep South, providing that she and her husband live there for 1 year. Otherwise it goes to her uncle, the scheming Wallace Howe, who worked many times in Lloyd's films. This would become a staple horror movie plot, recycled into various versions of The Cat and the Canary, for example. Here, for comedic purposes, the impoverished Davis has one immediate glaring problem: no husband. We then switch to the grounds of another wealthy pile, where the other girl, contrastingly dark in looks and self-interest, Maria Moschini, is gleefully fending off the attentions of potential suitors. While one blue-blood cad woos her away, we realize that underneath her is the highly put-out Harold. Smart in his white suit, and none too slow in conniving either, it's telling that in this two-reel he comes across as a somewhat sneaky and immature little lounge lizard. And yet his likability is such that we sympathize with him all the way. After his winning of Moschini's hand comes to naught courtesy of another beau, Lloyd melodramatically flounces away to kill himself with some great attempted suicide sight gags, famously showcased in his later TV compilations. He steels himself to be run over by a tramcar, only for it to divert tracks at the last moment. The sequence where he tries to drown himself off the bridge over the river is not only amusing, but also highlights key elements of what made Lloyd's persona and real-life approach to comedy distinctive. In preparing to take the plunge, there is his practical fastidiousness in taking off his jacket and plugging up his nostrils, and there is his engaging spirit of can-do helpfulness, which even then allows passers-by to distract him from impending death with their need for a light or the correct time. It is only when Lloyd can't quite get a car to flatten him that the lawyer-driver introduces him to Davis, and a head-spinningly quick marriage ensues. This then takes us to her family mansion, where the title goings-on happen, amidst the contrivings of the uncle, and oddly what looks like the other girl, and some mistaken accidental ghostly phenomena, such as a cat knocking a flower pot over. The most disturbing occurrences in the house are the sadly all too typical racist depictions of the staff. This was by no means rare either in the South or in Hollywood films going well into the 1930s, as we shall see in my later podcasts. D.W. Griffith's regrettable defense of the Ku Klux Klan shown in Birth of a Nation was only released 3 years before. Nonetheless, it's grimly unfunny to watch Blue Washington's African-American butler in wide-eyed, cowardly yasser mode, running on the spot in fear of another white-sheeted spectral demon, not to mention the questionable humor of having a black child emerging from a fall into a white flower bin to haunt the newly marrieds. Happily, there is some smarter comedic inventiveness on hand. Indeed, at one point, the uncle's sheeted ghost casts a shadow that seems to spoof the infamous pointy-haired look of Max Schreck in F.W. Murnau's Nosferatu, intriguingly 2 years before his seminal and unauthorized version of Dracula was released. This is an enigma, as the only notable Dracula film the Roach team could possibly have seen back then was the Russian Dracula in 1920. However, this version is lost, and unearthed footage displaying Dracula with the authentic white whiskers described in Stoker's novel has been disputed anyway. Perhaps they were alluding to another image in popular culture, or creating a generically scary one, a less satisfactory answer. Either way, the uncle and his accomplice are rumbled, at least redeeming the butler's treatment slightly by having him apprehend the culprits. Lloyd and Davis thus retire to bed together with charming innocence. There was a terribly ghoulish legacy, though, to Haunted Spooks. In shooting a publicity still during filming, Lloyd posed with what he thought was a fake bomb taken from a store of them in the props department. He pretended to jokingly light a cigarette from its wick, but on realizing too late that the unusually real smoke emanating from it would ruin the photo, he made to place the bomb down. At that moment, what turned out to be the real thing detonated in his hand. The explosion blew off the thumb and forefinger of his right hand, damaged the upper dental plate in his mouth, and caused severe gashes to his lips. This is why he subsequently wore white gloves in all of his following films, the right one fitted with inserts to make the damaged hand look complete. At 26, his life could so easily have been over, just as he was scaling the heights of comedy immortality. Fortunately, he was made of sterner stuff, and lived for many more years to bring the funny, including his masterpiece of thrilling stunt work, Safety Last. Thanks for listening, and if you like what you've just heard, don't forget to click so, and please hit subscribe. If you build it, they will come.